We are pleased to welcome you to our channel, where we explore stories that are not only fascinating, but also frequently sobering, and which shed light on the complexity of human conduct. As we bring you today, we have a horrific story that recounts the tragic case of the Amato family. This story reveals how obsession can affect lives in the most fundamental and devastating of ways. These storylines, which are defined by the destructive grip of addiction, are among the few that resound as strongly as they do throughout the annals of human history. Addiction may prove to be a tenacious force, tearing apart lives and shattering the very fabric of families, regardless of whether it is directed towards substances, habits, or even individuals. Cases like the one involving the Amato family serve as a vivid reminder of this brutal reality, demonstrating how the spiral into obsession can lead to repercussions that are beyond anyone's ability to imagine. It is essential to first investigate the Amato family's history in order to acquire an understanding of the magnitude of the catastrophe that befell the community. A apparently regular family, Chad, Margaret, Cody, and Grant, have their lives interwoven by love, ambition, and common objectives. Their lives intersect with one another. Despite this, there was a complicated web of resentments that were simmering and tensions that were not being spoken about beneath the surface of the normalcy. Over the course of their children's lives, Chad and Margaret Amato, who are both respected members of their community and accomplished professionals in the field of healthcare, have established a life that is both comfortable and prosperous. Cody, their oldest son, is a nurse with a bright future, and Grant, their younger sibling, also chose a career in medicine, albeit going about it in very different ways. It was Grant's path, however, that took a more sinister turn, one that was characterized by the insidious hold that addiction and fixation had on him. Beginning at an early age, Grant had difficulty connecting with other people, and he sought refuge and escape in the arena of digital technology. During the course of his increasing reliance on the internet, he also developed an obsession with the fleeting appeal of exchanges that took place online. Grant's plunge into fixation resulted in a hazardous cycle of addiction, which was sponsored by the resources of his family and facilitated by his own inclinations to destroy himself. In spite of the frantic efforts of his loved ones to intervene, Grant's grasp on reality continued to weaken, which ultimately resulted in a devastating and irrevocable outcome. Grant's addiction was met with resistance and defiance from the Amato family, as the specter of obsession loomed even bigger over their once calm lives. The Amato family's efforts to face Grant's addiction were met with resistance and defiance, as Grant's spiral into darkness reached its lowest point. Their attempts at rehabilitation shone that they were fruitless, despite the fact that they had the greatest of intentions. The events that took place on that tragic day would irrevocably change the path that the Amato family's destiny would take from that point forward. A startling act of betrayal, Grant unleashed a wave of violence that would claim the lives of his own parents and brother, leaving a path of misery in his wake. This act of violence would claim the lives of his own family members. A trial that would expose the depths of Grant's depravity was the culmination of the wheels of justice that were set in motion as the awful reality of Grant's acts became more apparent. Grant was finally found guilty of his crimes and sentenced to a life sentence in prison for the horrible act of first-degree triple homicide. This was the case despite the fact that he repeatedly asserted his innocence. The tragic events that befell the Amato family serve as a sobering reminder of the devastating power of addiction and obsession, casting a long shadow over the lives of everyone who was affected by the tendrils of these two diseases. During this time of reflection on their journey, let us not forget the countless other people who continue to struggle with demons that are comparable to theirs. Their struggle is remaining hidden from the public eye. Together, we will delve deeper into the intricacies of the human experience, investigating the untold stories that lay at the confluence of tragedy and victory. We invite you to join us in this exploration. Due to the fact that we are throwing light on the evil that is within each and every one of us, we may yet find salvation in the most unexpected of places. The Amato family exemplified the ideal of both suburban prosperity and the cohesiveness of the family unit. They lived in a cozy enclave where success and stability appeared to be knit into the very fabric of their existence. Chad, Margaret, Cody, and Grant were the members of this group. Both Chad and Margaret, who were the family's patriarch and matriarch, were highly respected professionals in the field of healthcare. While Margaret worked her way up through the ranks to become a senior operational manager in a prestigious private clinic, Chad began his career as a clinical pharmacist and then shifted his focus to software specialization. Not only did their occupations provide them with financial security, but they also instilled in them a feeling of pride and success in both themselves and their work. Cody, the eldest son of the couple, followed in his parents' footsteps and established himself as a devoted and capable nurse, following in their footsteps. He exemplified the principles that were ingrained in him by his parents, and as a result, he was highly regarded by his contemporaries for his dependability and compassion. Nevertheless, the relationship that existed between Cody and Grant, Cody's younger brother, was the one that exemplified the Amato family in its purest form. Even though Cody and Grant had different paths in their careers, they had an unshakable friendship that was formed from the experiences they had in common and the support they received from one another. Throughout their lives, from the exciting experiences of infancy to the challenges and difficulties of maturity, they were always there for each other, bound together by a connection that went beyond simple blood connections. The Amatos seemed to take great pleasure in their prosperous way of life, which included living in a huge suburban home that was loaded with all the trappings of prosperity. As a result of their passion for thoroughbred racehorses, they decided to pursue the hobby of breeding, which helped them further solidify their position within their community. Nevertheless, the closeness and unity of their familial tie was what actually defined their affluence, even though they could have been surrounded by the trappings of financial wealth. On the other hand, beneath the surface of wealth and the cohesiveness of the family, there was a complicated web of tensions that were not being spoken, which would eventually come to a head with potentially catastrophic results. As we delve further into the history of the Amato family, we come to realize that even the most bucolic of facades may conceal the most dreadful of truths. This is something that we have come to realize. Insecurities and unmet connections were the defining characteristics of Grant Amato's unhappy childhood, which served as the foundation for his descent into darkness. Grant struggled to find his place in the world, despite the fact that he was surrounded by the affection of his family. He sought solace in the soothing hug of his elder brother, Cody, in order to find resolution to his struggles. From a young age, Grant's fragility and reclusive personality made it difficult for him to interact with other people in social situations. Grant found himself on the periphery of the world, a mute witness to the bustling world that around him, while his contemporaries rejoiced in the companionship that one experiences during youth. It was within the constraints of his familial home that he discovered a sense of relief, and his relationship with Cody served as a guiding light in an otherwise uncertain existence. The passage of time only served to exacerbate Grant's difficulties in interacting with other people, leaving him with a sense of alienation and a perceived lack of comprehension. It was at this turbulent time that Grant's reliance on the internet evolved as a lifeline, a sanctuary, where he could escape the harsh realities of the outside world and seek solace in the anonymity of cyberspace. This was a time when Grant was able to draw strength from the internet. On the other hand, what started out as an innocuous distraction quickly turned into a hazardous fixation as Grant's dependence on pornographic content and webcam chats spun out of control. Grant's addiction overtook him, and every waking moment of his life was absorbed by the temptation of virtual relationships and transient intimacy. His addiction relied on the financial resources that his family had available to him. It appeared as though Grant's spiral into darkness was unavoidable, despite the best attempts of his loved ones to intervene. His addiction served as a relentless force that left damage in its wake. As our investigation into Grant's story continues, we gain a better understanding of the destructive effects that unbridled fixation can have on individuals and their families, as well as the tremendous influence that it may have on the lives of those individuals. As the shadows of Grant Amato's addiction spread a fog over the Amato family, his loved ones were confronted with the brutal reality of his spiraling plunge into darkness. This was a realization that came about gradually as small indicators of Grant's addiction began to appear. As a result, his family was left struggling with a sense of powerlessness and despair. After coming to terms with the seriousness of Grant's addiction, The Amato family made the decision to take action. Resolute in their intention to confront the demon that posed a threat to drive their family apart. They went on a journey of rehabilitation and redemption, inspired by a great hope that Grant would eventually recover from his condition. Their hearts were heavy with concern as they set out on this trip. Grant was enrolled in a rehabilitation facility as their initial step, which was a decision that was developed out of a frantic desire to provide him with the professional help and supervision that he so desperately needed. During a fleeting instant, it appeared as though there was a light of optimism on the horizon. This was because Grant was beginning a journey of self-discovery and recovery within the constraints of the clinic's walls. However, the path to recovery turned out to be filled with difficulties, as Grant's demons continued to torment him, even while he was in the safe environment of the rehabilitation center. In spite of the best efforts of the personnel at the clinic, Grant's determination weakened, and in the end, he made the decision to leave. He went back to his house, where he was surrounded by familiar surroundings, and the specter of his addiction loomed large. Within the confines of his family home, Grant's loved ones redoubled their efforts to support him on his journey to recovery. They were determined to help him get better. Instead of allowing him to give in to the allure of his addiction once more, they developed tight methods to monitor his activities and protect his well-being. They were resolute in their determination to prevent him from giving in to the temptation of his addiction. As they worked to establish in Grant a sense of purpose and responsibility, one of the most important aspects of their rehabilitation efforts was to encourage him to look for work that would pay him a living wage. They steered him along the path towards self-sufficiency with patience and determination, with the hope that attaining employment would act as a catalyst for his ongoing development and rehabilitation. Nevertheless, in spite of their best efforts, the specter of Grant's addiction continued to cast a long shadow over their lives, forcing them to question whether or not atonement was actually within their grasp. As we continue to delve deeper into the narrative of the Amato family, we begin to realize the significant obstacles that they encountered in their efforts to save their cherished son and brother from the clutches of addiction. A tragic chain of circumstances that would irrevocably change the way their lives would unfold over the course of their entire existence, overshadowed the desperate efforts of the Amato family to intervene and to rehabilitate their loved one. A betrayal that pierced to the center of Grant's fragile psyche and unraveled the delicate strands that linked his family together was the beginning of it all. The heartbreaking confession that Grant made when he discovered the email that his parents had sent to Sylvie was a revelation that laid plain the degree of his addiction, as well as the depths of his dishonesty. As Grant came to terms with the fact that his deepest, most private secrets had been revealed, he was left reeling and overcome with a powerful mixture of humiliation, rage, and hatred. Grant's response to this treachery would ultimately result in an act of unfathomable violence, as he would unleash a wave of cruelty that would leave his family devastated and destroyed. This cruel twist of fate would be the culmination of him committing this act of violence. With his acts, which were fueled by a toxic cocktail of fury and despair, Grant would forever ruin the fabric of their existence, which had previously been perfect. As Grant's grasp on reality continued to unravel, the violent killings of his parents and brother stood as a harsh monument to the destructive force of addiction. These murders occurred as Grant's grip on reality continued to deteriorate. During a furious fury of violence, he extinguished the lives of people who had previously loved and nourished him, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair in his wake. Nevertheless, Grant's journey into darkness was not even close to being over, even after something of such unfathomable tragedy had occurred. With a frightening logic, he attempted to alter the scene of the crime by arranging a macabre tableau in an effort to transfer blame onto his brother Cody, who was unaware of what was going on. The acts that Grant took, which detailed his attempts to frame Cody and confuse investigators, exposed the depths of his depravity as he attempted to avoid punishment for the horrible atrocities that he committed. However, despite his best efforts to conceal his actions, the truth would eventually come to light, revealing the full amount of his remorse about the matter. We are forced to confront the harsh reality of addiction and the devastating toll it can exact on those who are trapped in its ruthless grip, as we struggle to come to terms with the tragic events that befell the Amato family. It is in the wake of such senseless violence that we are forced to contemplate the vulnerability of the human spirit and the continuing power of hope in the face of unfathomable sadness. The terrible discovery that was made at the Amato family home prompted law enforcement officers to engage on a persistent quest of truth and accountability, which resulted in the wheels of justice beginning to move quickly. When Grant was taken into custody, it was the beginning of a court drama that would reveal the horrifying facts of his journey into darkness. After being taken into jail by the police, Grant was subjected to a plethora of inquiries and scrutiny as detectives attempted to unravel the complex web of deceit and brutality that had resulted in the violent death of 3 people. The incoherent narrative of events that Grant presented during his interrogation simply helped to deepen the mystery that surrounded the unfortunate events that occurred on that fatal day. His interrogation did not provide any assistance or clarity. Witnesses came forward to speak about the horrors they had seen during the course of the investigation, which resulted in the courtroom becoming a furnace of conflicting emotions and raw emotions as the case began to move forward toward trial. Each individual, ranging from members of Grant's family to friends and acquaintances, provided a glimpse into the lives of those individuals whose lives had been permanently altered as a result of Grant's acts. As forensic professionals painstakingly studied the crime scene and pieced together the terrible puzzle of Grant's crimes, the evidence that was revealed throughout the trial portrayed a damning portrayal of Grant's culpability. The prosecution's case against him was strengthened by every detail, from fingerprints to ballistics, and there was very little room for question or ambiguity in the case. As the jury returned with a verdict that sent shockwaves throughout the courtroom and beyond, justice was ultimately successful in its pursuit of execution. A striking reminder of the repercussions of unbridled aggression and the heartbreaking toll it exacts on those who are left behind was provided by the conviction of Grant for first-degree triple homicide. It was with the thunderous echo of the gavel that Grant's destiny was decided, as he was sentenced to life in jail without the prospect of parole. It was a punishment that was commensurate with the gravity of his offenses, as he was sentenced to spend the rest of his days incarcerated. This was a sobering reminder of the repercussions that may result from unrestrained obsession and aggression. We are reminded of the enduring power of justice to shine a light in even the darkest of shadows as we reflect on the arrest, trial, and verdict that gave closure to the tragic tragedy of the Amato family. Even in the deepest of shadows, justice has the ability to shine a light. In the end, it is a demonstration of the resiliency of the human spirit, as well as the unwavering dedication of law enforcement officers to seek the truth and hold those involved accountable for their actions. As we get to the conclusion of the heartbreaking account of the Amato family case, we are left with a great sense of sorrow and astonishment at the tragic events that happened. At the end of the day, what started out as a tale of familial harmony and suburban wealth turned out to be a nightmare, filled with addiction, obsession, and violence that is beyond comprehension. While the story of the Amato family serves as a harsh reminder of the destructive power of unbridled impulses and desires, the tragic effects of addiction and obsession hang large over the narrative of the Amato family. From Grant's spiral into darkness to the savage killings of his parents and brother, the ramifications of addiction resonated far beyond the bounds of their suburban house, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. This could be attributed to the fact that Grant's siblings were brutally murdered. In spite of this, there is a glimmer of light in the middle of the darkness, as we are reminded of the resiliency of the human spirit and the unwavering power of justice to prevail even in the most terrible of circumstances. Justice was ultimately served, bringing an end to the tragic tragedy of the Amato family. This was accomplished through the relentless efforts of law enforcement personnel and the unshakable resolve of those who advocated for truth and accountability. At the same time as we are saying goodbye to this eerie story, let us not forget the lessons that it teaches us. It is imperative that we do not forget the precarious nature of the human situation and the significance of seeking assistance and support when we are in need. In addition, let us pay tribute to the Amato family by working toward the objective of establishing a world in which addiction and fixation are no longer able to exert any influence over our lives. We are grateful that you have chosen to accompany us on this particular journey, and we strongly recommend that you subscribe to the channel in order to receive further narratives and content that explore the nuances of the human experience. In order to successfully traverse the challenges and difficulties that life presents, let us work together to seek understanding and empathy. To my dear viewers, before we part ways, I would like to extend a warm welcome to become a part of our community by subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. If you do this, you will be able to keep up with all of our most recent uploads and ensure that you never miss out on the captivating stories and intriguing narratives that we have in store for you. Also, believe me when I say that there are a lot more where that came from. Each new story is more captivating than the one that came before it, and we have a treasure trove of astonishing tales that are just waiting to be discovered. We promise that the next content that we will be releasing will keep you on the edge of your seat, whether it be stories of mystery and suspense, or testimonials of resiliency and redemption that will break your heart at the same time.